can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. You comfortable?
Yeah.
Do you want a chair?
No.
You sure?
Yes, thank you.
All right. If I embarrassed you enough, no.
No.
No. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Good to see you all. Thanks for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? Well, welcome. Those who are here for the first time. So I think I'll start, especially with a handful of you here for the first time. So I haven't really talked about this in a minute, so I'll just kind of do a refresher for those who've never heard this, or maybe for those who are here for the first time. But at the very beginning, I say, you can all join palms, and then we recite something, and then I sit down. And very often, it's kind of overlooked what we say. Some of you may know what it is. Some of you may not. Some of you may join your palms. Some of you maybe not. I'm looking that way. I don't really care if you join palms or not, or if you recite anything or not. It's up to you. But I just wanted to touch on very briefly before the meditation practice what that is that we're actually doing. At least for me, what I'm doing, and then what I share, and for those of you who do the same. But it's what's called taking refuge in the triple gem. And in Buddhism, we refer to the triple gem as the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But I think first to start out with, when you look at the word refuge, taking refuge, just kind of shout out some words. When you hear the word refuge, what does that mean to you? The word refuge. Shelter. What else? Safety. Protection. Peace. Sacred. Home. That pretty much covers it all. You did well tonight. Nice work. I didn't even have to fill any in. I think that's pretty much all of it that I would normally say anyways. But yeah, so that's what refuge is. So then, or whatever it means to you is what it is. But there's some ideas. So then the question is, well, what are you taking refuge in? That safety, that comfort, the protection. What are you taking refuge in? And it's called the triple gem, the three jewels. And the first one is the Buddha. Now, often, especially for those who might be new, when you go to you see monks and nuns and they're bowing and they're worshiping what looks like they're worshiping all these things. And then you just heard taking refuge in the Buddha. So it might sound like you're praising or worshiping him, right? He died 2,500 years ago. He cannot help you at all. You are on your own. So praising him and worshiping him and thinking he's going to save you and fix you and heal you, you're going to be out of luck. He will not do anything for you. He died. So you're on your own. But what we're taking refuge in when we say taking refuge in the Buddha is what's called bodhicitta, which means Buddha nature. And what the Buddha taught was that we all have Buddha nature. We all are already awakened, as they say. We are just covered with lots of clouds, our greed, our anger, ignorance, all the things that we talk about, in a place like this. But we are taking refuge in bodhicitta, Buddha nature. Now, to me, that's quite liberating to know that nobody else makes me miserable. Nobody else makes me happy. I have complete control over that. That is up to me. So if I had to rely on something or someone else to find happiness, then I would spend the rest of my entire life trying to rely on someone else or something else or someplace else for happiness. Knowing that you have that in you already, to me, is really quite liberating. that you don't need anything or anyone else or any other place to wake up to the beauty that's already inside you. So we're taking refuge, comfort, safety, protection in the awakened being that is already within us. We just have to realize it and look at it and see it. The second thing is the Dharma, and these are the teachings. And so loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom, all these kind of key, basic, fundamental, core Buddhist teachings about being nice and all that, that is the Dharma. The Dharma is what did the Buddha teach for 45 years before he died. So all of his teachings, this is called the Dharma. So we look at finding safety, comfort, protection, whatever that word is for you. If we practice these teachings, if we live a life filled with loving kindness and compassion, we're going to be a lot happier. If we live a life filled with greed and anger and ignorance, then we're going to be a lot more miserable. Again, it falls on whose shoulders? Yours. That's it, right? So we find comfort in that, knowing that we have the ability to practice these teachings and be kinder and gentler throughout our day. And the last one is the Sangha. The Sangha is the community. The time of the Buddha, it was the monks and nuns that came together. Fast forward today, 2,500 years later, group of people coming together to do meditation, looking at Buddhist teachings, things like that is called Sangha, community. And for me, I think this one's really important when you look at community as a place where, one, obviously, the intention is for you to feel safe and comfortable, for you to feel welcome, for it to be inclusive, all those things that are not everywhere in our society and in the world. But then in addition to that, places where you really are challenged in a kind, compassionate way, that you have some sort of accountability, right? That you have a place where you can be honest and authentic and genuine and real with all the madness that's going on in your head, in case you're somebody who has madness in your head. Maybe I'm the only one, I don't know. But that's the idea, is that we find safety, comfort, and protection in practicing together and exploring these teachings together and dropping all the walls and all the, kind of facades that we spend so much of our lives putting up. Can we drop all that and just be comfortable as we are with all of our craziness? And so for me, it's, again, really liberating to be able to have a space to practice. It doesn't matter if it's here or anywhere. So those are what we're taking refuge in: bodhicitta, awakened being within you, the teachings, and the community. And those three jewels are really what kind of work as a place to cultivate and practice day in and day out. Last thing I'll say on that is I like to kind of expand Sangha, especially for those, your life isn't in a Buddhist temple, but any of you spend time in traffic? Can traffic be your Sangha? Right? When you come to a place like this, when you go to your yoga class or whatever your spiritual thing is, you're probably relatively nice to the people that you see. Well, you know who the people are that pissed you off in traffic today and yesterday? They're sitting right next to you. In a place like this, we tend to be kinder and gentler to others. But these are the same people that annoyed you all day long on the freeway today. Can you be as kind and gentle in other areas as you are here? So traffic, grocery stores, customer service, things like that, all the places where you tend to be triggered and not so kind, if you treat all of those no differently than a Sangha like this, a community like this, then again, you'll be kinder and gentler to others. And if you're kinder and gentler to others, then others will thank you for it. So with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. To those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. This practice is learning to get quiet and still within the chaos. If you are new, you're not trying to empty your thoughts. You're not trying to think nothing. You're not going to go blank. Your mind will race. I'll say things to either wake you up or remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to present moment. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps. Slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, a bench or chair, however you're seated, same thing. Relaxing the shoulders, sitting up straight, comfortably though. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with your eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, feel them fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from your practice. You're just sitting, breathing. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize every feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice, not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation isn't going to fix that. It'll help you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can begin to make changes in your life. Meditation is direct perception into the present moment, learning to be with life as it arises. And life is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. That's what we get. So this practice is learning to be with that when it occurs and not running from it, which is what so many of us have done for much of our lives. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in every moment. This is our karma. The word karma literally means action. Karma is not what goes around comes around. Karma is not getting what you deserve or they're getting what's coming to them. That's not karma. Karma is not what we get, it's what we give. We generate karma 3 ways: body, speech, mind, what we think, what we say, and what we do. So the teachings and practice of being mindful of our own karma is not about mindful of what happens to us. It's about being mindful of what we do. All of our thoughts, all of our words, all of our actions create reality around us, create our lives. And so the practice of thinking good thoughts and speaking good words and doing good deeds, that's it. Buddhism is not complicated. It is very simple. It is incredibly difficult to do every single day. But it's not complicated. Don't be fooled by 2,500 years and cultures and languages and bowing and chantings and robes and stuff. It's just stuff. What do you think? What do you say? And what do you do? That's the heart of these teachings. And that never changes, has never changed, and will never change. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. To those who are joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. Feel free to say hello in the chat box somewhere on your screen. If you have any questions, you can put them there. I'll do my best to respond. And We'll use the rest of our brief time this evening for questions. Oh, I didn't even finish yet. You're all right. Go ahead. It's been up for like 20 minutes. Go ahead. Sorry to waste your time. Yeah.
No, my question is, so like how some of the meditations like heal the body, mind, and soul. What does it necessarily mean by healing the body? How does it heal the body?
Who said meditation heals the body, mind, and soul?
I'm saying like
No, hang on. Who said, don't rephrase your question, who said meditation is about healing the body and the mind and the soul? Because I didn't.
No, not you necessarily.
Okay.
Find something that say healing.
Okay. So what did you find that says meditation will heal your body, mind, and soul? Not that you did, just it's okay that you found it.
But like helping, should I say?
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
How does it help the mind, body, and soul?
Oh, that's a very different question than what you said, though. No, I mean, I'm being very serious. And that's a great question, but it's a good thing to point out for everybody, because what you started out, you done? You good?
Yeah.
Okay. What you started out with was meditation heals body, mind, and soul. And you saw me push back on that. And now you're asking, in essence, what does meditation do for you? Right? So you will read so much crap about meditation. So much. You can spend the rest of your life reading nonsense about meditation, told by all. What anybody else says about meditation is meaningless. You like pizza?
Yeah.
I love pizza, right? So if I sit here for the next 30 minutes and just devour a pizza in front of you, does that tell you anything about what this pizza tastes like? No. Could be the best pizza in the world. It could be terrible. Although I don't think that's possible, right? But me eating pizza does not give you any idea what eating pizza tastes like. So for me to tell you this is what meditation is going to do to your body, this is what meditation is going to do to your mind, this is what meditation is going to do to your soul. Forget the fact that Buddha says there's no soul, but that's another question, right? It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what the Buddha said about meditation. Question, what's your name? Isaiah. The question is for Isaiah, do this practice of meditation every day for 5 minutes for the next year. Like truly, do this practice 5 minutes every single day for the next year. And then December 2nd, 2026, show up here and say, hey, Jeff, this is what meditation has done for me. That's your answer. Yeah. You don't have to read much. Look at all the book money I just saved you. Practice it. Don't read about it. Practice it. Don't worry about what it does to anybody else. Don't worry about what it does to me or anyone else. What it does for you, you will only discover when you practice it. Yeah, for sure.
Hi, I'm Giselle.
Hi, Giselle. I'm Jeff.
I am in recovery, and I have been dealing lately with feeling worthy of like joy, and being able to enjoy peace and actually enjoy the moment because I'm so used to ruining it for myself. So at a time like this where I'm finally doing all the right things, when I have a state of excitement or in a state where I have a friend that wants to get close to me, I tend to just push away. And I tend to not want that. And subconsciously, I know it's because I feel like I'm not worthy or I feel like I'm afraid of losing it.
Yeah.
So how do I get rid of that resistance?
Yeah. So a couple things. One, and I mean this very seriously, might start out sounding, people often laugh when I say things like this, but I don't mean it like this. What you're asking, which is probably half the people in this room, is very much a question about therapy. To work, do you have a therapist?
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot, but I'm guessing with that question, you probably have a therapist, right?
Yes.
As do probably half the people in this room, right? And the other half are therapists. So you're good. But what I mean by that very seriously is that's a question on one hand. I will respond for me from a Buddhist lens, but that's very much something to work through in therapy, addressing trauma, childhood trauma, past stories, everything that led you to put your walls up and the shame and not feeling like you're worthy of anything. continue to work through that in therapy. Now let me give you a completely different approach to it, which complements that, doesn't replace it, but complements it for me from a Buddhist lens. What you're really talking about is this story that you have created in your head about yourself. You have a story, Giselle, right? That you have told yourself over and over and over again for years about you. And that story is based on all your experiences from childhood and every moment until now. And everything that's happened to you and with you and around you has shaped this present moment of you sitting here right now. And that story gets reinforced by yourself, and it gets retold by yourself. And at every meeting you go to, every therapy session, every group, everything you sit in, hi, I'm Giselle, and this is my story. Buddhist teachings, there's what's called non-self. Incredible. Because the Buddha taught that the greatest form of attachment that we have is to our sense of self. And the Buddhist teachings on non-self doesn't mean we're not here. It doesn't mean we don't exist. It just means we exist completely differently from how we perceive ourselves to be. So you have a whole bunch of stories in your head about who you are, right? Now, if you just said to an absolute stranger, which I'm pretty much a stranger to you, Jeff, who is Giselle? If you ask 10 people to describe who is Giselle, would they all tell you different things? Are any of them right or wrong?
It's up to their perspective.
It's up to their perspective. Who else has a perspective of Giselle? You. Are you right? Just because it's your perception? No. So the story you're telling yourself is just a perception. But the challenge is when we do that to ourselves, we say, well, you've reinforced, kind of repeating myself here, but you've reinforced your story year after year after year. And it becomes really hard to unplug from that. And so Buddhist practice about learning to be present, where the meditation practice is really important. I hate to give you some things that meditation might do for you because I want you to learn on your own. But one of the things that meditation helps with is it helps us to say, I'm here now. I'm here. And the story you're telling yourself sounds like you don't feel like you deserve anything. That's nonsense.
Because it's like there's moments where like I'm so happy, like bonding with like in a moment, and then like it almost feels cringe to me. Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I am 50 now, so the word cringe is a little behind my generation, but I've heard it enough I think I get it now. You know?
Like it makes me like cringe or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God, I'm too happy, or like it makes
Yeah.
me feel like out of my comfort zone that I'm this happy.
Yes, good. This is what I'm talking about, is these types of things. First of all, when we are out of our comfort zone, assuming it's, of course, safe and healthy and not toxic and not dangerous, but out of our comfort zone is really important in Buddhist practice. It's really important to put ourselves in healthy, safe situations that we are not comfortable with, because it is challenging the perceptions of who we are. So again, you've told yourself your whole life that you don't deserve happiness, you don't deserve joy, you don't deserve anything. And when all these good things start happening to you, you're like, no, that doesn't align with the story I've told myself, the box, right? I always talk about, we have a box in our head that we tell ourselves about everything and everyone. Everyone in your family, everyone that's pissed you off over the years, you have a story about them. And you're not changing it at all. You have anyone you're really angry at for the last 20 years? 5 years? No? Yourself. Huh? Okay. Well, that'll work too. Change the story. It's easier said than done, of course, but that's, again, coming back to the meditation, where meditation is helping us just stay present. Whatever challenges, trauma, difficulty, hell you've been through, you're here. You have a place to sleep. Food, it might not be where you want it to, but you have a place to sleep. You got food to eat. You're smiling. Your life could be pretty good. And if you just learn to slowly have gratitude and appreciation for the fact that I've made it this far. But again, it has to do with really destroying the story that you've been telling yourself that you don't deserve anything, because that's just a made up story that is not true. So you're in essence lying to yourself.
Yes.
Stop that. Again, easier said than done, but that's why you have therapy. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sonia.
Hi.
I was just wondering what the Bum and Dharma Bum Temple is.
So it comes from a Jack Kerouac novel. The Dharma Bums was the name of the novel. And so that's where we took the name, the Dharma Bums. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have much more of an exciting answer, but that's it. Pretty simple. Yeah. What else? Questions? Yeah.
Could you talk more about the attachment itself?
About the what?
The attachment itself.
Attachment itself? Yeah. So I know I kind of touched on it briefly, but some of this would repeat what I was talking about. But, the Buddha said we suffer because of our cravings, our desires, our attachments, always wanting more. And so very much that begins with this sense of self. And so, when I was born, I'm like crying and my parents are like pointing at me and they're like, that's Jeff. And then I get old enough to realize like, oh, I guess that's my name. It's some name they gave me that I respond to. And then as I grow up, I have these family members and these friends and this school and these experiences. And so my whole life, I go through all of these experiences and I begin to create some form of identity that I think is permanent and real based on my experiences. And so that begins to create, again, this box, this story, this attachment to this is Jeff. And then I try to defend it. I try to prove it. I try to, the ego gets involved. But all of that is just an illusion. I'm just this physical body with a consciousness that has had 1 trillion experiences. That's all. But we tend to fixate on certain moments of our lives that we think define us. And we say, well, this is me, right? Or this is me, or that wasn't me. This is me now. We're always trying to define ourselves. And so for me, this kind of attachment to the sense of self really wants to, the idea is that makes us want to put ourselves in a box. And then we don't experience anything because all we're doing is comparing. You ever compared yourself to anyone in your life? That's because you have a view of what you think you should be. And then you're comparing that to someone else. But that story about you is not you. And the story about the person you think you're trying to be or don't want to be like is also not them. So the attachment to sense of self is the attachment to the story that you have about everything, not just people, but everything. Everything and everyone, we have a story. Foods we like, clothes we like, people we like, places we like. We just create a story and we get attached to that. And then we don't allow ourselves to experience anything because, again, using the pizza example, once we take a bite of pizza and someone says to you, describe it. Well, once you start talking about it, that's not what it tastes like. That's just your experience. So Sundays really with the Heart Sutra class, this is what we dive into quite a bit, which is kind of breaking down this attachment to the sense of self that we think is so important. Do you ever think your whole life that you're the most important person in the world? Isn't it cool to be in a room full of people who so many of us think we're the most important person in the world? I mean, how can that be? How can we all be the most important person in the world? Fascinating, right? But all of that comes from that story. And again, I'm not saying, for those who might be new, I'm not saying you're not important. I'm not saying you don't matter. I'm not, trying to take away that. Yes, take care of yourself. Of course, take care of yourself. But other people matter too. Take care of other people. Most of us wake up in the morning and think, I'm hungry, I need to eat. We don't think there are starving people in the world, they need to eat. We satisfy ourselves first and then others. And yes, I get it. Oxygen mask falls, put on yourself first so you can take care of everybody else. But it's not to that extreme. It's just, do we think about other people just as equal as we think about ourselves? And we typically don't because we think we're more important. Because we've been told that, So it's not something to grasp in like 3 minutes, but it's it really is, to me, the attachment to sense of self it's a lifelong practice of exploring, instead of trying to figure out how to get to non-self. Do you know when you make decisions or choices that are based in your pride and ego and all about you? Never, right? So the idea is to do those things less. And when we make decisions that aren't so much centered around us as the most important person in the universe, we're actually practicing a bit of non-self, I believe. So it's not about attaining non-self. It's about recognizing when we're wrapped up in ourself and doing that less. And usually, if we're honest with ourselves, we can kind of figure that out with our choices and decisions we make throughout our day, and how our decisions impact, places and people around us. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
So if other people aren't responsible for how I feel, am I responsible for how others feel?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I be concerned with how I affect people around me?
Yes.
Okay. But I'm not responsible for how they feel about me.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the easiest exchange we've ever had. You're getting there. Let me kind of expand on that, because I'm actually glad that you asked the second question, because what popped into my head immediately was the second question, which was at the beginning. So your first question, which was, are other people responsible for how I feel? No. Are you responsible for how other people feel? No. But that actually was a third question you said that I was happy to hear. But then you said something effective, but you didn't say it this way, but is what I do going to impact other people around me? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. Again, those weren't your words, but so it's one thing. The reason I wanted to kind of, and again, you didn't say this, which I was glad, but we want to caution a little bit where we think, okay, we're not responsible for other people's feelings and other people aren't responsible for our feelings. But our interaction really does have a huge impact on others, as does others' interactions have a huge impact on us. So you can respond to me any way you want, and I can influence that, right? If I get up and give you a hug, there's a better chance that you'll be happier than if I got up and punched you. But ultimately, that decision is yours. But I still have the ability to influence a situation. And if we just say, well, I'm not responsible for others, the danger there is then we kind of fall into this place of nothing I do matters. And that can be really just detrimental and I think dangerous. So, yeah. Again, mindful of how our actions impact others, but ultimately everybody decides how they respond to a situation. Yeah.
Is there such a thing as unconditional love?
Is there such a thing as unconditional love? Well, so non-attachment in Buddhist teachings is what kind of in this very Western way you would say unconditional love. Non-attachment is to love without any expectation. Non-attachment is to love, again, even if you look at non-attachment and tie it to the sense of self. So think about it this way, but non-attachment is to love without any expectations. Non-attachment is to love without manipulation, without control, without, strings attached, without loving, to make sure you get something back. Can we just absolutely love and care for everybody unconditionally, regardless of who and how they are, regardless of what they do for us, regardless of what we get from them? Can we do that? And ultimately, to me, the practice the Buddhist teaches on compassion is to have unconditional love for every sentient being, all time, all space, and all directions. Whether, it's a family member, an intimate relationship partner, or a stranger. Yeah, can we unconditionally love all of them? Because they're human, or they're animals, and they're suffering. So absolutely. Yeah. Were you not?
I was going to ask a question.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Make a comment based
Yeah.
on his circular
Yeah.
question there. It doesn't mean that because I'm not responsible for your emotions that I don't care about those emotions.
Correct.
my actions might impact that in a way that I might not like the way that I look at myself after I've done something.
Yes. And that's why I said it's a very kind of slippery slope, so to speak, where we want to be careful because, let's just say, you have a friend, a loved one, whatever, and you're in an argument and they're upset, right? I wouldn't pull out this like Buddhist card that says, well, you're upset. That's got nothing to do with me. It's like there was years ago, I tell the story a lot. I haven't told it in probably a few months at least, but I'll never forget. There was a time this woman had been around a while and she was sitting right here. She came in and it's like meditation was done, questions, and right away hand went up. And she said, my wife is angry at me and I'm having a really hard time with that. And I said, well, did you do something that caused your wife to be angry at you? And she said, yes. And I said, so you want to feel better that about your wife being angry at you, but what you did triggered her to be angry at you. So it's definitely not excusing accountability. And at the same time, I think more to your point of what you're saying is to acknowledge that we all at times in our lives and going forward will do things that harm other people, whether it's intentional or not. And I think it's really important that we own that. And that, as unenlightened, ignorant folks, we're going to do stupid things. And to own that and to vow not to do them anymore, but not to, again, this is not your question, I'm just rambling, but not to say like, well, that's your mess, not mine, And I think if we do things that harm others and we don't feel bad about it, then that's a serious problem too.
Then you're not practicing compassion.
No, exactly. There's no compassion, no wisdom whatsoever, so, I've talked about this forever, but, I spent years just being cruel and mean to people. And so you have to own that. But there's also a balance to where if you just fall into this pattern of self-hatred for everything you've done, then it's really hard to come out of that also. So own what you've done, vow to not do those things again. But definitely the emotions of recognizing harm you've caused is important. Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard, I myself am not in recovery, but I've heard from several people that are in recovery.
Yeah.
Or have been for several years. It kind of, I've been thinking about like what you're talking about, like feeling like unworthy or whatever, is that esteemable acts can help build esteem.
Yeah.
And I think about it in the same way of like the idea or like the overall purpose of like Buddhism is to help you suffer less.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing things that help other people suffer less, it helps you suffer less.
Mm-hmm.
Is that my own?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the Four Noble Truths of Buddhist teachings, first is life is filled with dukkha, suffering, right? Discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. Doesn't mean all of life sucks. It just means we're going to struggle a lot through our lives. And we're going to feel pain and suffering from, death and loss and trauma to sandwiches made the wrong way or latte didn't have enough pumps of whatever, right? Little things throughout your day that aren't ruining your life, but we experience moments of discomfort throughout our day. The second is second noble truth is the cause of suffering. And this is our greed, our anger, and our ignorance. We overcome greed with generosity. We overcome anger with compassion, and we overcome ignorance with wisdom. So what you're talking about really is how we overcome the greed, which is the cause of our suffering. And that is through the practice of generosity and giving time, attention, a heart, your smile, whatever you can do to help people. That is the practice. And to your point, exactly that, yes, when we help others, right, for the most part, we all know that when we help people, we feel good. And when we feel good, we tend to do better things. So it is just kind of this cycle that as we help others, we are helping ourselves. And as we help ourselves, we feel better about ourselves and, kind of less self-hatred. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
That's actually one of the main pillars in recovery is service.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Huge. Yeah, there's, and as many of you know who are here, I mean, we started our recovery programs through Dharma Bum Temple 16 years ago. And it was because Ken St. Pierre, one of our first early from Dharma Bum's early board president, he called me one day in 2009 and said, Jeff, I think I figured out how, he was about a year into recovery and a year into Buddhism. And he said, I think I figured out how the two line up. And I said, why don't you draw it out? And he said, I did. And so he came down the old Buddha for You, and he had, I have a picture of it. He had this big sheet of butcher paper, and he wrote the 12 steps, and underneath them he put Buddhist teachings. And, 16 years later, we're still holding a ton of recovery groups because there's a lot of parallels. Absolutely. So service, just be of service somewhere in a formal or informal way. Yeah.
Have you ever heard the phrase that somebody say, when in doubt, focus out?
I have not, but I like that. Yeah. When in doubt, focus out. I mean, and again, I think a lot of these things apply to the Buddhist teachings on non-self because, I mean, if you sit around all day long thinking about yourself, how does that make you feel? For whatever reason, most people don't feel good, which is also ridiculous because you've all done a lot of really good things in your life, I'm sure. So if you are going to sit around and think about yourself, then also think about some of the good things you've done, right? The story you're telling yourself isn't real. I mean, it's just as much nonsense as the other stuff you're telling yourself. But if you're going to make up a bunch of stories about yourself all day long, you might as well make up some good ones. If you're going to lie to yourself all day long, you might as well tell yourself good things about yourself, right? So what else? We'll do one more before we close. Yeah.
I really love what you said at the beginning about Bodhisattva.
Oh, yeah.
Where my mind goes when I think you say that was something I had heard recently, which is that, like similar with what you were saying, but happiness isn't a feeling, it's a practice, and gratitude isn't a feeling, it's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom isn't a feeling, it's a practice. And that is something that really resonated with me, but also felt just in contradiction with what I feel like we're all used to hearing, which is happiness is a feeling and it's this end achievement and this thing that you achieve when you, do all the work. And I think it also, like I've been struggling with sitting with it because like the idea of it being a practice and just like, damn, that's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
You choose to practice gratitude, happiness, and wisdom and all that.
Yeah.
Which I know is the word. That's also the big thing. But I guess just like in thinking about these things as practices instead of like happiness, I guess specifically.
Yeah.
Practice. I would love for you to watch it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, to kind of, to me, I think the best way to answer that is personally, in my practice, I do not seek happiness. I do not look for happiness. I do not try to be happy. I practice. I practice everything the Buddha taught to the best of my ability every single day. And what I like to refer to as kind of side effects from that, the side effect from that is the suffering that I've experienced in my life drastically decreases. And when your suffering drastically decreases, that means happiness, joy, whatever you want to call it, increases, but not from the seeking and craving and desiring of happiness. I get it. We all want to be happy. And it's actually one of, I think that, Buddhism has traps just like anything else. It's one of the traps, I think, in Buddhism that, especially when it's like, end suffering, like, yes, sign me up, right? I mean, it's what people think the goal is of Buddhism is to end suffering. So now you got a bunch of people learning about Buddhism wondering like, when the fuck is my suffering going to end? It's not going to end. It doesn't end. It changes. It shifts. It increases at time. It decreases at time. But all of that is comparable to the part that you said, like, damn, I got to work. How hard you work at it, right? And Dogen, the great Zen teacher, 1253, founded the Soto Zen school. He said, practice as if your hair is on fire, right? Now, if your hair was on fire, you wouldn't just be like, yeah, I'm just going to let this burn for a while. No, the diligence, and that's the Bodhisattva statue right here, Samantabhadra, represents great diligence. It's effort. It's hard work. Things we train for in life are hard work. And most people, again, I'm not even talking about you, but most people show up to Buddhism sad, angry, depressed, miserable, and they're like, oh yeah, that's gonna bring me suffering. That's going to end my suffering. Boom, sign me up. And then they meditate for 6 months and they're like, how come I'm still suffering? Because you're not practicing. You're not working on the service part every single day, the non-self part every single day. We're just thinking we can meditate and read a couple Thich Nhat Hanh books and all of a sudden be happy. No, you're just going to end up more miserable and feel like a failure. So it is daily practice. You know, my master in Taiwan used to say, you sweep the leaves every single day, because if you don't sweep them every day, they will pile up. And then you got a big mess. So the practice of training the mind, of being of service, of taking care of others, it's not about, kind of even back to my earlier comment that I started with, it's not about reading this stuff. It's not about what more Buddhist books can I read and what more Buddhist places can I go to and what more, things can I learn. How do you serve others? That is, to me, the Bodhisattva path and the Bodhisattva practice. And it's a lot of work and it's exhausting. But the suffering becomes incredibly, incredibly minimal. And I find tremendous joy in that practice. But I think it's beautiful to think about it as, the way you said it, that it's not about gaining happiness or getting happy. You said it better than I can say it, but it's not about happiness. It's about practice. And that's really the truth. So thank you. So I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right. Before you all head out, our Dharma Bum host, Josh, has a few announcements for us. As Josh is coming up, if any of you come consistently on Thursdays or even once a month on Thursdays, we are looking for another host on Thursdays. So if you want the code to the temple and to be able to read this stuff, let me know. Thanks, Josh.
Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, Josh. We opened Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who meet are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.